Hello and welcome to Everything's Fine, probably your weekly antidote to bad news. The show that stares into the abyss, discovers it's posting on LinkedIn about personal branding and quietly backs away. Let's start, as we tend to these days, by pointing and laughing at the more mainstream news. If you want to point and laugh, then Peter Mandelson's a good place to start. Again, it's another week that's proved the scientific principle that Peter Mandelson cannot be destroyed. He can only be relocated. Honestly, you can't get rid of him. He's like some weird Victorian curse. You flush him away in one scandal, there's a bubbling noise, and he bobs back up again, sprinkling an unpleasant scent and advising someone important. Newly released government files have revealed more behind-the-scenes Mandelson chaos, including messages criticising Keir Starmer's leadership and showing the extent of his continuing influence inside government. There's always this sense, isn't there, with Peter Mandelson, that he's lurking somewhere nearby, like mould or Bono. His political career resembles one of those horror films where the villain keeps sitting back up. You think it's over, the music stops, everyone relaxes, and then suddenly a hand emerges from a think tank and starts lobbying again. Of course, Peter Mandelson isn't the only ex-politician to have been in the news this week. Former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been explaining that she knew absolutely nothing about her estranged husband Peter Mullen's embezzlement of more than £400,000 from SNP funds. Mullen's now admitted the fraud, which involved everything from luxury vehicles to a £125,000 motorhome and a frankly astonishing collection of household purchases. And look, legally speaking, Nicola Sturgeon's not been charged with anything. She's consistently denied any knowledge of the spending. And who am I to question her? But it does raise some interesting domestic questions, doesn't it? I mean, aside from a whole load of luxury goods and household items that Mullen bought, there was an £81,000 Jaguar, a robotic lawnmower, and let's not forget, a motorhome the size of a regional hospital. And apparently Nicola's position is that all that happened without her knowledge. Can you imagine the conversation? Peter, why is there a luxury motorhome parked outside? What motorhome? Oh, you know, the enormous German recreational vehicle visible from space? Oh, no, that's just a new wheelie bin. I mean, the motorhome itself was reportedly driven just 4 miles before being hidden at Mullen's mother's house. 4 miles. I like to think the sat-nav's still burbling happily away. At the roundabout, take the first exit and commit massive financial fraud. I'm not looking to judge anyone or accuse anyone of anything, but I like to think if somebody had spent 12 years secretly filling my house with Jaguars, gadgets, luxury goods, I'd have noticed eventually. Probably around Jaguar number 2.
She's a bit ungrateful, isn't she, if she didn't notice any of that?
Why bother embezzling all that money if you're even going to notice? Well, not a sign of a good marriage.
Well, I think he probably had, they call it kleptomania or something like that, because he was clearly buying things he didn't really need, wasn't he? Coffee machines and
wasn't that
stuff, salt and pepper pots for £3,000 and so on and so forth.
Are you trying to tell me I don't need my £3,000 salt and pepper pots?
Well, who does?
Well, Peter Mullen for a start.
But Nicola Sturgeon said she might have unconsciously seen the camper van. That's her latest comment.
She unconsciously saw a camper van.
She might have done. She might have seen it, but it didn't register.
Well, they don't, do they?
Well, they don't.
No. Not if you stick one of those in your drive.
Absolutely, yeah.
Meanwhile, over in America, not only has our favourite fascist and alleged rapist and torturer of children, Donald Trump, had his slush fund for bailing out his armed thugs removed, he's also suffered one of the funniest legal defeats imaginable. A federal judge has ordered Trump's name be removed from the Kennedy Center after ruling that the board had no authority to rename it after him. The judgment stated that only Congress could change the venue's name, which is glorious. Trump treats public buildings the same way a toddler treats a wall and a marker pen, so to have a grown-up tell him he has to stop seems very apt. The judges reportedly ordered references to the so-called Trump Kennedy Center removed within 14 days, so somewhere in Washington there's now a team of contractors carefully scraping Trump's name off a building, while he sits on Truth Social typing entirely in capital letters while stuffing cheeseburgers into his disgusting mouth. Still, there's
Leave
one
it.
thing.
Yeah, leave it, Jim.
I will in a moment. I was
Leave
going to
it.
say that if there's one thing that Trump understands, it's having his name removed from things.
Okay.
Casinos, universities, charities,
Yep.
wives, and now theatres.
I thought, oh, I know where this is going. Oh, no, theatres. Okay.
I don't think we're supposed to mention any special files.
Possibly. Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of people who seem determined to make life worse for vulnerable minorities while claiming to defend freedom, we'll be returning later to the ongoing attacks on trans rights in parts of the United States. Last week, we talked about how some states are introducing increasingly hostile laws aimed at trans communities, and we also talked about places pushing back about ordinary people refusing to go along with cruelty dressed as policy. Because if there's one thing authoritarians can never quite get their head around, it's that communities tend to get stronger when they're under attack. But it brings us very neatly to today's guest. Joining us very shortly is returning friend of the show, Emily Hamilton, one of the organisers of Queen's Pride, the LGBTQ+ supporters club at Harlequins Rugby Club. Emily will be talking about last weekend's Pride game at the Stoop, where Harlequins women beat Leicester Tigers. And she's also here to tell us gently where we got some things right and some things wrong last week. I say hopefully gently because nothing terrifies a podcast host more than hearing the phrase, just a couple of points. So stick around for that, along with plenty of good news, questionable opinions, and whatever fresh political nonsense has emerged from the world's ongoing commitment to make satire completely redundant. Let's bring the rest of the team in, shall we, Gemma? Shelley, Stu, all good this week?
Hello. Yeah, I was in Brighton at the weekend watching Craftwork. Pretty awesome. Awesome. I like Brighton. I like the, devil may care attitude of the place.
Sleazy, I think, was the word you used.
It is a bit sleazy, but, there's nothing wrong with that, is there? There's nothing wrong with
Sleazy
that.
in an intentionally good way.
No, it's got its own vibe, isn't it? I love Brighton. I think it's great.
Good. Follow that if you can, Gemma, Shirley.
Can we ever really follow Stu?
Of course you can. Really? What did you do at the weekend?
You always
shut up.
You always know when Stu's got something good planned at the weekend because, like, before that weekend, he'll go, so what are you doing this weekend? Yeah. What are you doing this weekend? Like,
yeah.
So
yeah.
You
like
can
an
say...
excited child.
Yeah.
Not with you.
Me first. Well,
as someone who did.
Emily, was at the rugby. Hi, Emily.
Let's bring you in now.
Hey.
Thanks for coming back on. Lovely to have you back.
It's nice to be back. Thank you very much.
So where should we start? Let's start with the game, with the Pride match. How was it?
Absolutely cracking. Also absolutely roasting. So it was far too hot for rugby. One of my vice chair, Jack, who's a smashing fellow, was grumbling heartily before the match about how hot it was. I had to remind him he wasn't playing. Yeah, I mean, super hot, and we had. So it's a great thing for Queen's Pride, for the women's Pride match. The club gifts us a box, so we can thank those people who've supported us, and frankly, so we can just relax a little bit and enjoy genuinely some prawn sandwiches. There were prawn sandwiches on offer. So the club put a few rounds of sandwiches out, which rapidly became toasted sandwiches in the room, and we were able to invite guests.
Do you think you've sold out, Emily?
Well, I'm not sure that our person who told me I sold out is still alive, but
I should just point out, Emily, that the man who just asked if you sold out supported Norwich City Football Club up until 3 years ago when he switched to Arsenal. So.
Well, I mean, good time for a switch.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, the one thing I would say, it's the one thing from the club that we are gifted. So we're very careful, very clear that we're not funded by the club. We don't take any funding because we want to be able to hold the club to account if we need to. We need to be able to say to them when they're getting things wrong. But we are very, very grateful for the opportunity to be able to invite some guests. And look, the on-pitch action was fantastic. Great win for us. I mean, a bit sad today, to be honest, because the news about Ellie Kildun has come out, and we got a chance. Ellie wasn't playing, but she was on the pitch at the end, and now to know that was her sort of final hurrah on the hallowed turf at the Stoop, that's a little bit sad. But yeah, what a game! Really, really good result. Great vibe. Women's matches are always a great vibe at the Stoop. So yeah, it was great.
Wonderful. And it's the men's pride game this Saturday against
It
Saints.
is the men's pride game this Saturday. Yeah, so I don't have a box for this one because, funnily enough, they're all taken by people who eat prawn sandwiches for a living.
Oh, the professionals are moving in.
Yeah,
That's the one. So I'll be back in my seat, and the weather doesn't look like it's going to be quite so bad. So that's okay. But yeah, we'll be there. So if people are coming to the Stoop this Saturday, we will be potentially under a rain gazebo. Just as you walk in at gate 1, and we'd love to see people come get some free laces, get a badge, come and join Quinn's Pride and be part of what we're doing. But yeah, I want to say it's our 6th or 7th now Pride match. Yeah, it might be the 7th this year because we started the year after the first Pride match. So yeah, we're the only club doing it still, and that's really horrifying. So Prem Rugby got involved last year and the year before, and they started having a pride round, and frankly they made a bollocks of it, and they made our experience worse, which is something to say. And this year they changed it to what they call an inclusion round, which sounds interesting until you realise they did a roundup of all of the clubs in the Premiership, and not one of them talked about LGBT people. So it's good that we've got a broader view, that we're thinking about disabled fans, and of course Quinn's is famously up there for helping autistic fans to enjoy rugby. So they have sensory areas and packs for people who might find it a bit overwhelming. So again, we've been at the forefront, but yeah, not a single club talked LGBT. So yeah, Prem Rugby, I've been out there, I've spoken to them. They've decided they just don't want to be part of Pride inclusion anymore. And I wish them well with whatever endeavours they're doing, in their smoky rooms somewhere else. We'll carry on with what we're doing.
It's almost too broad, isn't it, to sort of say inclusive and then try and lump everyone under the same banner. You're better off to be more specific and split it out, aren't you, really?
Well, it's actually a big tactic of the anti-inclusion groups now, is to say that anything that supports inclusion for LGBT people or for Black people is divisive, and therefore you shouldn't do it because it's spoiling the day for the straight people, or it's spoiling the day for the white people, whatever that might be. And it's absurd. We know it's an absurdity, but that is the standard go-to. So yeah, it's just a shame. I think we're still the only club doing this. We're still the only LGBT supporters association in world professional rugby. And I think rugby, I spoke about this last time I was on the chat, rugby has got a terrible superiority complex in this space, that we talk about rugby values and rugby's not like football. Every Premiership football club has an LGBT supporters association. Most Championship clubs do, and we're miles behind. And yeah, we don't have chance. So this is the thing with football; it's very overt. You have the famous and disgusting Chelsea rent boy chant, which has often brought the ire of both the police and the authorities. We don't have chanting in rugby as much, but I hear the comments. You hear things being shouted. You hear the comments, just to me individually and personally when I'm in the ground, from home and visiting fans alike. So we can't afford to sit on our laurels as a sport or as a club. We've got to keep vigilant.
Well, it feels like a good point really to bring us back to what we were talking about last week.
It seems like a good idea to actually have someone from the trans community be part of that conversation, because there is always a lot of people speaking about it, and then you don't actually get to see anyone who it actually impacts sitting there joining in the conversation as well. So
with you, Shelley, you do know people in the trans community who are quite close to you, so you were coming from a place of some knowledge, weren't you?
Yeah, I suppose it was just like a place of care, and like when you see the actual hurt and fear that are going through with people who you care about, and people who just are trying to get on and live their life and mind their own business every day, and and suddenly they've become this big target, and it's already hard enough. It was already hard enough. That's probably more where I came from, that sort of ally kind of zone, really. So, but yeah, it will be good to hear from Emily.
Yeah, let's bring
bless you. You all look like you're really worried that I'm going to tell you off or something. Give you a scolding.
No, not at all. I mean, when you contacted us at the end of the show, which is great, not many people do. we just more. So, we're quite excited that someone had actually
It was
made
not just a contact, it was a repost to let it into other people's lives.
Yeah, it was quite good. Someone had actually listened to our show and made a comment. So we were more than happy for you to come on, and happy to hear from you.
Well, no, thank you. I mean, look, the key thing is, and I absolutely get where you're coming from, and you guys are supportive. I've been with you before, and the comments were generally, absolutely right. You're talking about some really pernicious crap that's floating around. I think what it's worth doing, and it's a shame you've called this "everything's fine," probably because it's not probably fine at the moment for the trans community, but there are things we can do to make it so. I think there's a danger sometimes that we, and it's a bit like with the rugby, okay, with that superiority complex. There's a bit of a danger we look at America and say America's awful and isn't that terrible, and they're exporting some of this, but they're really bad. Because at the moment, I'm going to put this out there, the UK is worse than the US. The US does not have a national federal law that is about to say that on vibes alone, you can ban somebody from using facilities that they may have been using for years and years and years. So that's the first thing to say. There are some states in America which are, pretty grim. Texas is a place that, you really, if you're trans, please don't go there. Don't get into there. But there's nothing federal. So there are parts of the US that you can get to. In the US, their legal system means that there are, and you picked up on this, there are some fightbacks. There are some federal judges who are pushing back against some of the worst things. There are some governors who are pushing back against the worst things. We don't have that in the UK. We've got a Supreme Court that kicked off this ruling in the first instance, and to remember that no trans voices were allowed to intervene in that case. The same Supreme Court that actually yesterday has just dealt a massive blow to people who are mentally ill, and taken away some of the protections for them as well, which is really frightening. People who have been judged not to have capacity to make decisions have just lost some massive protections thanks to the Supreme Court. So we've got some real problems there. But it's not just about toilets. That's the other thing. I think it's quite easy, and sometimes we can sort of be humorous about toilets and what's going to happen. I mean, in the last week, I've had people on, what are supposedly some of the last respectable social media platforms. Our old friend LinkedIn being one of them. I've had people threaten to drag me out of the toilets by my ankles. I mean, I've pointed out to them that unless they want to be eating soup for the rest of their lives, they better not touch any part of me. Especially ankles or not. But this is the sort of thing that's been emboldened. We've got a so-called equalities minister saying, I think most people know what to do if they see somebody using the toilets. This is one of our equality ministers saying this. Yeah. So we've got this sort of almost call to vigilantism. But it's not just toilets. So the almost the biggest worry for people like me is hospitals. So, and I don't mean hospitals for gender affirming care or the lack thereof. I mean, if you think about all of the public health campaigns that they've had about looking for blood in your poo, or have you got abdominal pains? Go see your GP. I won't, because what happens if I need secondary care? I'm now going to be put on a men's ward because the government say I'm not who I say I am, despite my appearance, despite the way I live my life, despite, the fact that I'm not any of the things that people say I am. So I will now not avail myself of secondary medical care, and loads of people are in exactly the same boat. I would discharge myself.
About that. I did read that they said that they think that this will prevent people from actually getting the help that they need.
It already is.
Yeah, I mean, I know at the moment it's not. They're not actually acting on that, but they're basically saying this is what we're going to do, isn't it? But I don't know how this is going to work. I think that it's going to cause so many problems.
Well, as I say, it's on vibes. Now, look, for me, I'm very, very tall. I am very obviously trans, and actually I'm not ashamed to be trans. I'm very proud to be trans. I'm very proud to be a woman. I'm very proud to be who I am. But I'm one of those people who they think about. They say, okay, well, you've got broad shoulders, because broad shoulders are absolutely an indicator of somebody being dangerous. I've got a relatively deep voice. That's testosterone poisoning. That is obviously, again, another great indicator that somebody's dangerous. Marlene Dietrich, watch out, she was obviously out as some sort of predator. But all of these things for me mean that my life is less safe, that people have been emboldened. So it's not the politicians, who are going to come out and do this, but what they're doing is they're emboldening people to come and do it. And because these politicians are making life worse, and actually this is the most regressive government we've had, and it's amazing to say this, for 25 years for LGBT matters. The question is what comes next, and there is a serious risk of a very right-wing government coming in, and they're not going to make it better. They're not going to maintain the status quo. They're going to take where we are now and move us forward. And they're itching for a fight about the European Convention on Human Rights. We are the only country who are signatories to the ECHR who have done this in terms of gender recognition. So, you know, the things I've signed paperwork to say I will live this way for the rest of my life. And that was my social contract with the government. That's now been broken. We're the only country in the ECHR that's done that. So I just want us to be really clear that at the moment we are worse than the US. We are a legitimizer of transphobia. We add a veneer of intellectualism to transphobia, whereas it tends to be a little bit more frothy and tub thumping and overtly religious from the US. But actually our intellectualization makes it worse. The Cass report, which stripped healthcare from young people, I mean, an abysmal piece of work. You know, one of the references that Cass put into her, and look, I'm familiar. You are on YouTube as well, so just take this the right way. But one of the Cass report citations was a podcast called "Things About Stuff and Things." Was one of her citations, and this is something that has been used not just in the UK to take away young people's healthcare, but it's been cited in the US. It's now in Australia. You know, one of the states in Australia is in an absolute bare knuckle fight to try and retain healthcare for young people. Even in New Zealand, which was a pillar of equality, they're revving up and they're fighting there, and the money is flowing in. So we just got to be very clear about our role and our part to play, and this current government's position. And you know, I'm in Parliament in the next couple of weeks. I've been invited to a reception. You know, I've got words to say. So I mean, there are things going on. There is this week there has been an early day motion tabled against the ECHR code. People can write to their MPs. Please write to your MP. Ask them to support and sign that early day motion. Hold them to account. Hold them to pressure. There are things we can do. There is always something we can do, but it will get worse before it gets better. So that's my well actually for you all, and it's just a little bit of context, just because what is very worrying. There are people from even within the community who want to be good news. They want to give hope, and hope is good, but it's got to be hope grounded in reality. If we're telling people things are better than they are, for our allies, it's a problem, because allies then think things are better. And I've had people say to me, well, it's better than it was 10 years ago. No, it's a million times worse than it was 10 years ago. It's actually worse than it was in the 80s in some ways.
I was just remembering, actually, can you remember what year was it when someone transgender won Big Brother? Was it like
about 2002, 2003, yeah.
There was a transgender
Nadia,
woman won Big Brother 20 years ago, and can you imagine, like, that was the country, everyone watched Big Brother then as well, didn't they? And everyone in the country decided that she was the best person, the best contestant. That's how different we were, actually, how much more progressive we were 20 years ago.
I mean, look at the Hayley Cropper storyline on Coronation Street. I mean, you know, absolutely open, absolutely a different country in that respect. I was watching, this is how sad I am, I was watching reruns of Challenge Annika on YouTube. Why wouldn't you watch Challenge Annika?
I love Challenge Annika.
That is what's missing from our lives.
It cheered me up. But I looked at that, and I was watching the episodes, if you remember, if you're old enough to remember, for those of riper years. She went to Romania just after Romania came out of communism to help at an orphanage. It was actually harrowing what had happened there. But I just looked at the workmen she was bringing over, and she brought all these workmen over. And this, for those who don't remember, this orphanage was awful. They had babies and children in a basement with no lights, in their own mess. You know, it was just awful. And these workmen came and they worked like Trojans to effectively rebuild this orphanage over the space of a week. And talking to those people, they were talking about supporting their fellow man. They were talking about how to help somebody who was not British. And that's the British workman that I know. That's the British person that I know. Where are they now? Where, you know, this wave of xenophobia, this wave of racism, this wave of transphobia, homophobia, sexism, you know, ableism. who's feeding that? Because those people haven't gone away. Those people, are what I think is best of British. And where's that gone? So maybe we need to bring Challenge Annika back.
Yeah, it's being driven by the right, isn't it? I don't know if you saw Farage getting a ticking off today from Starmer.
Yes,
you know,
trying to
but this,
politicise that lad's
the lad's death, and Starmer called him on that. He said, the parents asked for us not to kind of weaponize it, and Farage did, and he said, we need to respond with rage. And as a result, last night there was rioting in Southampton, wasn't there? So we know who's peddling it, don't we? We know who's driving it.
It's really weird because I don't remember this is awful, but I don't remember the police having a reputation. Well, I always thought they had a bit of a reputation for being quite racist.
Well, I think
so
the Met is
now they're not
renowned for
racist enough.
There's obviously going to be an inquiry and an investigation, and to be fair to the police, have to make quick decisions, and clearly it's gone wrong, hasn't it?
But that was a weird situation, wasn't it?
a man who's been stabbed and is bleeding on the ground.
I mean, I don't know how they screwed it up from that point of view, but from the beginning of it, the attacker rang the police, didn't he, and said, "I've been attacked. I'm a victim." So they actually went in, going. I mean, why they did that? If they were worried about this man surviving, why didn't they say, "Oh, he needs an ambulance" or something?
Well, initially they didn't believe him that he'd been stabbed. That was what the problem was. And it was only when they identified the wound. So it's difficult policing in those situations, isn't it? Because you haven't got all the information. I'm not saying things, things clearly went wrong, but at the same time, it must be difficult to police some of these situations. So, I'm not necessarily defending the state. I'm just saying until there's a full investigation. But I think this week as well, I don't know if did you watch Tiptoe, Emily?
No, I haven't had a chance to watch it. I've got like a day job and a gay job and a sort of gay club to run. So I haven't watched it yet. I've seen the reviews. So I'm definitely going to watch it.
It was very, I watched this week. I think it's very, very much backing up what you've just said, really. Sort of a state of the nation for, the whole community. And there was bits in there where they were saying as well, on Canal Street, because they did Queer as Folk initially, didn't they? And then they followed up 20 years later with the Cucumber, and then obviously this instalment, and they're all on Canal Street saying it's worse. Actually, the reason it's worse is because we've now all identified ourselves. Everybody encourages us to come out. Now we're in plain sight, and now they're going for us. And I thought
I'm on a government list. I mean, I'm now thinking, was that the right thing to do?
Absolutely. So I thought that was a really sort of powerful comment that people have kind of, come out, identified, and there was a period of time where it was accepted. But you see comments, don't you, from people in government and in Congress. Do we still need Pride? You've made your point. I think we need it more than ever. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, that reminded me of something. Actually, this was a piece of quite encouraging news out of all of the horrible stuff that's happening at the moment. So apparently, during the miners' strikes in the 80s, I don't know, Emily might know about this already. So the LGBT community helped raise money for the miners' strikes in Yorkshire to help support them to stay on strike, and they raised like thousands and thousands of pounds for them. And then this year, I think it was in Durham, so Reform cut all the funding for Pride, saying you're not having this money for Pride, so basically to stop them from having Pride. But there's still like a miners organization, and they didn't forget that the LGBT community helped them back in the 80s, so they raised loads and loads of money and ended up raising more money than was originally awarded to them by the council for them, so they still got to have Pride in Durham raised by the miners.
It was fantastic. I should say, not just the miners, Equity, the actors union, stepped in and gave a sizable donation. So trade unionism in in its truest form. And like, I'm an old socialist, so I'm a very proud trade unionist. I'm very pleased to see that happen. So it is a really good news story. For those who haven't watched the film Pride, you must watch it. It tells the story of Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners, which was the organisation that was set up. And actually, it was South Wales was where they had the biggest impact. The South Wales collieries. And if you haven't watched it, it's an amazing film. You make sure you've got some tissues handy for watching it. There's some really poignant parts of that film, with people later in life coming out, in an environment they would never have been able to. And I think that's the good news story. So we have put a target on our backs, and I am very worried that my name is on a government list. I applied for a GRC. I went through all the hoops. I paid my money. I allowed an anonymous panel of people to say whether or not they thought I was a woman based on my driving license and the fact that I got caught going into a yellow hatched box in Barnet in my car. That's apparently how they were able to know that I'm a woman. But it's still better than being in the closet. It's still an improved matter. You're all looking puzzled, so I should just say, for the benefit of the listeners,
I'm puzzled because I don't know what a yellow hatch box is.
Well, if you drive into the one in Barnet and you stop in it, you get £100 fine. That's just a bit of advice. But
yellow grid box, you're not allowed to go into it unless you can come out.
Is that what it's called? I never knew that. There we go. That's why I was looking so surprised. I
just didn't know they could define your gender from it.
So when you apply for GRC, this was all part of the Gender Recognition Act 2004, which has effectively been nullified by this latest guidance. To apply for a gender recognition certificate, you have to have a solicitor's sworn statement that says you're going to live as you are for the rest of your life, which I've done. And of course, by being forced into the wrong toilets, I would be breaking that pledge that I've made. You have to provide evidence that you've been living in gender for a period of time. It's 2 years. And the way you do that, I've got sort of passport, driving license, and you have to have letters. And I thought it'd be a bit fun. There's a letter that says, Ms. Hamilton, you drove into a yellow hatch box. Here's the photograph of me looking really stupid, sitting in the yellow hatch box with my £100 fine. And you send this all off to a panel you never get to meet, made up of lawyers and doctors. You have to have your doctor sign off as well and say, because even though it's not a pathologized thing, you have to have a doctor saying, yeah, this is definitely a transgender person, and they're going to live like this for the rest of their life. You send it off. This panel has a look at it. Takes them about 3 or 4 months to do, and then you get your certificate back. And you can't get one if you're married, for example. You're not allowed to have one unless your partner says you can. So your partner has absolute control over your identity. It's called the spousal veto. It's not how. So it all came because the UK government were taken to court in 2004 in a very famous case to the European Court of Human Rights, who said, you can't treat trans people as a third sex. That's what we're doing now. You can't have no means of people changing their identity properly and legally and lawfully, which is what we got. But it was never supposed to be this sort of intrusive panel that just can make an arbitrary decision that says, well, actually, no, you're not who you say you are, which is where self-ID came into play, where we wanted to have a situation where it should have been enough that you go and you make, and it's a very serious thing. You should absolutely have to go to a solicitor and make a solemn pledge and sign that. That becomes a legally binding pledge about how you live. I absolutely agree with that. It's not a case of just declaring it in the morning, but that shouldn't be somebody else's decision as to whether you do womaning or manning well enough based on where you're driving.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a very cold, bureaucratic process. It's isn't it? Sounds horrible, actually. Quite degrading. Yeah,
it's grim, and there are people who've been denied their GRC, their gender recognition certificate, because they transitioned so long ago that all the medics that went and supported them have all retired or died, so they can't get any records of their surgeries. They can't get any record of their medical care, because they've been living as they are for maybe 20, 30, 40 years. So they've been denied the certification because they can't get hold of these people. And of course, some doctors refuse to do the letters. Doctors will always charge for the letters. So you've got to charge, which Kemi Badenoch, when she was the so-called Equalities Minister, reduced to £5 and told us we should all be very grateful. But it was historically a sort of 160 quid you had to pay for the panel.
Wow.
And then you'd have to pay your doctor £55 to have a letter written saying this is it. You'd have to pay the solicitor to make your declaration. You have to pay potentially to have other evidence done. We still had to show diagnosis, even though the World Health Organization voided being transgender as a mental health diagnosis in 2020, 30 years after homosexuality was declassified. Incidentally, this was only 1990 that we stopped saying that being gay was a mental illness, which surprises people. That's why we have Ida Hoblit in May. So you have to have all these things. So it used to really rack up, and not all trans people have got jobs. Trans people are hounded out of jobs. They don't have the money. So it's just all barriers to things you would take for granted. You want a driving license and you've passed your test, you can have one. You want a passport because you want to travel in a way that doesn't out you or cause you a problem, you can have one. But for us, we've got to go through all of these hoops. And of course, now we've seen the Supreme Court, the sort of right-wing agitator groups online are now talking openly about removing our documentation and saying, now we've done this, on to the next thing. It's never enough for these guys. They want us completely removed from society. So now they want to come after our passports. They want to come after our driving licenses. They want to come after our recognition at work and our safety there. It will never be enough. And this is what the government can't understand, that you can't appease bigotry. Bigotry can't be appeased. If you give an inch, they'll take a mile. And if you give a mile, they'll take a furlong. I don't know. Is a furlong longer than a mile? I don't know. I don't do horse racing.
It sounds longer. It does sound
good, doesn't
longer.
it?
Yeah.
Sounds longer, yeah.
But it is one of those that, definitely, once they start coming for certain groups, the rights of certain groups, they will eventually come for everyone.
Of course.
So,
Well, I mean, women is the big thing, of course, because now it's on vibes as to whether I can go to the toilet or get changed in go to a shop and a changing room. There are many more cisgender women, so cisgender meaning not trans, who are going to be impacted by this than trans women, because there are fewer of us. But if God help you, if you are a tall woman, if you are a broad woman, if you have a deep voice, if you have short hair, if you decide to not be gender conforming in a way that pleases the viewer, Kate Osborne MP, who's been a vocal ally of ours in Parliament, was challenged just this week in the toilets. Should you be in here? Because she has short hair. She is a lesbian who has short hair.
Well, some women with, I can't remember what it's called now. It's not called PCOS now, but polycystic,
PMOS,
polycystic
PMOS,
syndrome. Actually do have full, lots of facial hair, and it actually, people with hormone imbalances and health conditions and stuff. But it is that forcing women have now got to, it's that forcing, you've got to be really feminine. You've got to be really feminine so you can go and use the toilets without being challenged.
I mean, it's a funny thing because people say, where do you buy your clothes, and where do you go and have your laser hair removed? It's like the same place all the other women go, because guess what? All women at some point in their lives have to deal with unwanted hair if they are so inclined to deal with it. There wouldn't be any businesses if it were just catering for trans women. I go in there and there's plenty coming out.
Colleague about that, actually, because she was saying about, and I went, were you eventually surprised into your journey that actually how hairy women really are?
Yeah. I mean, look, the wax industry. I mean, that would collapse overnight if women decided that they didn't want to have their legs done. And I'm exactly the same. I'm very much a binary trans woman, so I'm very much on the spectrum towards the sort of femme end. I like not to have hair on my legs. I like not to have hairy armpits. That doesn't make me any more of a woman than somebody who does, trans or cis. But this suggestion that we've all got to be homogenous, we've all got to please the eye of another, usually a man, by the way.
Yeah,
it's usually a man who has to be pleased with our appearance. That's not a trans problem. That's a women's problem, And the more we recognise that we're fighting the same thing, we're fighting that same level of bigotry, the better. And we can stand together.
Yeah, the male gaze is as old as time, though, isn't it? So
it is, except when he gets poked out with two fingers, and then the male gaze stops. And
that's why I carry long nails. I I realise this isn't really the point of what we've been talking about, but these things bother me. So I can tell you that a furlong is actually quite a lot shorter than a mile. It's,
Oh.
That's embarrassing. What about a league? Where does that fit? Is that longer?
Hang on, a league.
Come on, let's just check
it's
this out.
nautical, isn't it? So now we're talking.
Well,
I think.
I don't mind. You could be sailing, and you could. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You're such a nerd.
What about a billion furlongs? How much is a billion furlongs?
I just want to make sure that my
A
quote
league is significantly longer than a nautical mile. So,
good. Okay, that's all right. Well, see,
so if you're at sea, it would work.
Because I want this quote. This is one of those quotes that could end up on a picture of me, and I want to make sure I don't look a fool. So that's fine. Just rewind that one. I say a league. They take a mile. They'll take a league.
Well, look, Emily, thank you for all of that, for coming on. And
Thank you. And thank you for being such allies.
So while we're on the topic of sea and nautical things, I'd like to talk about something that, actually like a reverse Nigel Farage, gets less toxic with time. But first, I'll just ask, how many countries do you think ratified our favourite topic, the High Seas Treaty, last month?
Last month, 7.
Stu's going 7.
I'm going to be more modest and say 4.
4.
5.
5. Emily, do you want to come in on this? I know you're absolutely just guessing.
17.
None. Not a single bloody one.
What?
But I do have some good news for marine life.
Can you just quickly give Emily an overview of what that treaty is?
The High Seas Treaty, basically, all of that part of the ocean that exists that isn't near countries, it's like the Wild West. People can do whatever they like in it. So we've got bottom trawling and other horrible things going on in there. So the High Seas Treaty has been set up to try and put some laws and protections around it. The first thing that had to happen was they had to get a certain amount of countries, not just to sign up to it, but to ratify it. They reached the ratification point end of last year, so it has now become law. But we're now in that awkward position between it becoming law and anything actually being done about it. But in the meantime, more countries are ratifying it. Of course, one of them still not the UK, despite the fact said it would be done by the end of last year. Anyway, good news for marine life. So for our sea turtle listeners out there, this one's for you. It's a story about redemption, not the Hollywood type where someone learns a valuable lesson. It's actually the oil industry kind, where after decades of helping to cook the planet, oil rigs are finally doing something constructive. Researchers have found that decommissioned offshore oil platforms can become thriving habitats for marine life. And they're arguing that in some cases, they might actually be better left in place when their working lives are over. So this study, led by the researchers at the University of Aberdeen, looked at more than 4 decades of evidence from 18 countries, and they found that when oil rigs retire, they often become artificial reefs, attracting fish, shellfish, corals, all sorts of marine life. And these structures can support biodiversity, they can improve nutrient cycling, they can even boost local fish populations. So amazingly, abandoned oil platforms contribute more to the marine bioecosystem than the UK government. So it's nature, yet again, showing us how astonishingly adaptable it is. Give it a giant lump of steel in the middle of the sea and nature turns it into an underwater Wetherspoons.
Well, that's where you get a lot of the conger eels, isn't it?
Yeah.
Around oil rigs. Don't know if anyone's been conger eel fishing.
Conger eel?
Yeah.
Are they like actually doing the conger around the oil rig?
And they just sort of, and actually, the more I learn about fish, the more sensible they seem. They're certainly more organised than most local authorities. They've turned something unwanted into affordable housing in double quick time. So it's kind of nice, isn't it? It's like discovering Donald Trump's old casinos are now protected habitats for endangered species. It's not impossible, it's just deliciously ironic. We seem to talk about good news coming out of Scotland quite a lot, and we're not finished either. Shelley, you've got some good news that's come out of Scotland this week as well, I believe.
I've got big news coming out of Scotland, like big bird news, literally big bird news.
Okay.
So,
You know, Nicola Sturgeon didn't notice it though. But the fact it was big.
She unconsciously noticed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Those birds really have to get big for Nicola Sturgeon to
Well,
notice.
they'd be bigger than a motorhome, wouldn't they? So.
Yeah.
I mean, how big are these birds? Are they like emus?
I think they're going to be going that way. So
Really?
This is actually about a very tiny bird, the wren. So the wrens we have in England, well, most of the mainland UK, are very, very tiny. But it turns out that the ones that are on like some of the 4 islands, Shetland, Fair Isle, the Outer Hebrides, and St Kilda, they are actually getting bigger because it's kind of like evolution is actually starting to happen in front of our very eyes. So I think at the moment they're actually 16 grams bigger than mainland wrens. I don't really know how big 16. I think if you put them both next to a banana, the banana would look slightly smaller next to one of them. I'm trying to like put some sort of perspective.
Why is it always a banana for scale?
It has to be a banana. That is the scientific rule of
It's the
showing
law.
for scale. It is not a ruler, a banana.
How many leagues is a banana?
A league is 220 yards.
So how many bananas?
It's a fathom, I think.
Is it a fathom? Yeah.
Yeah,
How
I
many
think
how many bananas in a fathom? Can you Google
5.
Bananas
about
in a fathom.
how many
about
bananas in a
50
fathom?
wrens, mainland wrens.
Yeah.
I think it's the chips. Chips are better in Scotland. I think that's probably what it is for the bird.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Here we go.
a fathom's exactly 6 feet, 72 inches long, and the average banana measures between 6 and 7.5 inches long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, about 72 bananas. I suppose.
72 bananas.
Mm.
But obviously that doesn't help us with this wren situation because what are they equivalent to?
No, a normal wren would be smaller than an average banana.
How much are these big wrens then? A banana and a half?
They're 16 grams bigger.
But
Yeah, I
how
mean
big is
16.
I don't know how to
Hang on,
convert that into
But
height.
an average wren weighs between 7 to 12 grams. So if it's 16 grams bigger, that's like huge, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like
It's like
hench now.
double the
So
size.
they're
Emily was saying earlier she wasn't sure if she'd made some of the right life choices, and I wonder if she's thinking that right now.
I'm just looking at. I had a Kit Kat bar to the side, and a 4-finger Kit Kat is 41.5 grams for your listeners' benefit. So
Okay.
wow.
working
Yeah.
out on that.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I mean,
How many Kit Kats is a wren?
right.
Half a 4-finger, so 2-finger
It's a two-finger
Kit Kat.
Kit Kat. Okay.
Two-finger Kit Kat. Right, we've got there.
I would
There's
expect two-finger Kit Kat
two-finger
unsatisfying.
cat. I mean, these are hardly massive, are they, Shelley?
But no, but I mean, like birds are pretty light, aren't they? You know, if you've rescued a bird from your cat or anything, birds don't really weigh anything. It seems like quite a hefty, like 16 grams bigger. So I'm guessing like if they're usually about sort of 7 grams or so, these are like kind of like 20-gram birds.
Okay, and what is this because there's less predators around?
So yeah, that is actually part to do with it. So it's actually something that's called island gigantism.
Mm-hmm.
And so when animals are isolated in like on an island, they will actually get larger over time. And apparently that's actually what happened to like the penguins and dodos and really big like birds that you see. So I think once like a penguin actually used to be a sparrow. And
Do you, Shelley? Is that what you think? Is it? Okay, right.
well, that's what I said. I just said I thought that.
But Big Bird lives amongst all the residents of Sesame Street, and look at the size of them.
Yeah, and Big Bird actually used to be a little canary.
Yeah. So on Sesame Street, there's a lack of predators. Is that what we're saying?
Well, you'd hope.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is so woke, isn't it? So you know, birds are free to get really big on Sesame Street.
Fantastic.
I think Oscar the Grouch has bitten the head off a bird before.
Yeah.
He has the look of a biter.
Was that a broadcast episode, Emily? Doing that?
No, I think it was off camera, but he's just got the look of that sort of character who'd bite the head off a bird.
Yeah, he would. He would.
I would have thought the camp would be more the kind to go for the bloodthirsty stuff.
Is there a whole After the Watershed Sesame Street going on somewhere?
Yeah, After Dark, it's called. Yeah, Sesame Street After Dark.
We'll send you a link.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Shelley, does this benefit these birds that they're getting bigger? I mean, what's the
Well,
advantage?
yeah, I mean, getting bigger is a sign of thriving, isn't it? Like evolving, getting bigger, they are thriving. It's funny, there's one thing that I would like to know. So apparently, like their songs have changed, like they don't have the same bird song as mainland bird. So I don't know what the differences sound, but I imagine it's like really quite like deep.
Deep, but it's more
Like,
sort of,
yeah, they're not going like tweet tweet. They're going like hey there.
but in a
White as
Scottish
ends of
accent.
the island.
Yeah.
So Scottish wrens, they're getting bigger.
Scottish wrens are
Yeah.
getting.
I think eventually they'll turn into dinosaurs again.
They might evolve
Is
back. Yeah,
That's where birds evolved from, dinosaurs.
And
So
and
dinosaurs are
what
coming back.
what was the phrase again?
Island-
Gigantism, is that right?
Gigantism.
Yeah.
Island gigantism.
Well,
There we are.
we've all been there.
We started with some serious stuff.
Right.
We've done some serious news.
Yeah.
And now we'll pass over to Gemma for something that's just downright bizarre to finish with.
Yeah.
Sometimes social media flags up some frankly bizarre stories, like this one from Prince George, British Columbia. Picture this. It's 9 a.m. The morning rush hour is in full swing. The commuters are doing the usual dance of coffee, traffic, and existential dread. And then, gliding serenely along the roadside, is a grown man in a pink, child-sized Barbie Jeep. A Power Wheels Barbie Jeep Wrangler, to be precise, designed for those aged between 3 to 7, with a top speed of about 5 miles per hour and a weight limit of 130 pounds. I'm not going to give any sort of banana comparisons at this point. Sorry to disappoint you all. I'm not going there.
We're all okay with the size of a Barbie Jeep.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
good to know. Just to be clear, this man absolutely did not meet the whole under 130 pounds or age limit thing.
Really?
I know. Shocker.
Is this a toy Jeep?
Right, you must have seen a kid's riding Jeep. They're like
Yeah,
little
it's
cars
a
for little people.
Barbie Jeep. Like, where are you going to go and get a finance deal for like a Barbie Jeep as an
I'm sure you
adult?
probably could in Hollywood. Somewhere like that. You could
Would you like me to send you a picture of said Jeep? I haven't got one. I would have to find it. It would take time. I'll do it if you want, Stu.
I would have thought Ken would drive one, wouldn't he?
Why would Barbie not be driving herself?
Oh, well, that was. Well, he might borrow it, or he might want one because he admires Barbie, doesn't?
Or he could be the
When my
passenger
daughter was
princess. Who knows?
and used to go to her first school,
Yeah.
she used to like me to pick her up sometimes with her bike.
Yeah.
And to save carrying it, I used to quite enjoy riding the last bit on her bike. So I would ride up to the school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to amuse myself and the other parents.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, that's nice. That sounds like you'd get on well with
Oh,
Ken.
thanks, Emily.
Well,
oh, look at that. That's pretty cool.
It's currently £10.80 on eBay if you want to rush in for it.
What? So
£2.94 postage.
Wow, that's cheap.
Very cheap.
So there's quite a big fella. He's got inside this, has he?
Yeah, so his name is Casper Lincoln, and according to him, he was simply trying to go and get a Slurpee, but got lazy and borrowed his roommate's child's toy car instead. His friend even walked beside him like a very confused pit crew. Witnesses said he was cruising at maybe 3 miles an hour, wearing aviator sunglasses.
Can anyone, a grown man in a Barbie Jeep, ever really be said to be cruising?
But here's where the plot thickens. An unmarked police car spotted the Barbie mobile bravely tackling the morning commute and pulled him over. Officers quickly realised two things. He was over the legal alcohol limit, confirmed by 2 breath tests.
Was he on the road then?
He must have been.
I assume so.
Yeah, it must have been, yeah.
He was also driving with a suspended licence. And yes, even in a plastic Jeep that tops out at the speed of a brisk toddler, that still counts as impaired driving. As the RCMP helpfully clarified, any motorised vehicle on a public road requires a licence and insurance, even if it's bubblegum pink and powered by a toy battery. Witnesses filming the arrest can be heard saying, "You're really arresting him for driving a kid's Jeep?" And honestly, it's a fair question. But the law is the law, even when the vehicle is made of plastic. Casper was given a 90-day driving ban and a court date in December, and to his credit, he's taken the whole thing in good humour. He told reporters this was the most hilarious of his arrests, which frankly raises follow-up questions, and said his main takeaway was simple: don't drink and drive.
Yeah, damn right.
And here's the good news angle: no one was hurt, which I know is quite a low bar, but you know.
Well, that is good news.
I thought it sounds really fun.
Yeah.
No harm.
What was your most hilarious arrest, Emily?
Well, there've been a couple, but I won't go into the time I was arrested by the Ministry of Defence Police for no, we won't go down that road. I will tell a funny story. I did used to work for the police, and the guy I shared an office with, the inspector I shared an office with for a while, he when he was a young constable, arrested somebody for a driving offence, and they brought the detainee and the car back to the station back in those days. And the car was parked up in the backyard of the station, a locked yard. And somehow this detainee got free and got into his vehicle, which they'd left the keys in there. And it's just a catalogue of cock-ups. Got in the car and started driving the car around the yard with my friend and others chasing after him. And in the end, my friend managed to get on the bonnet of the car and stop this guy from driving. And he got him back inside and said, I want to have him charged with a driving offence. And the custody sergeant said, you can't. He wasn't on a public road. So they had to look through the statute book, and they prosecuted him for furious driving of a carriage, contrary to the Town Clauses Act of the 1860s, 1868 or something. So but I just had this image of this guy. He's a lovely guy. I'm still in contact with him. Hi, Julian, if you're out there. But yes, always the thought of this young police officer on the front of the car, and then scouring the statutes for something to nick him for.
I love those old statutory laws. In Norfolk, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you can still presumably be charged for the offence of being an incorrigible rogue.
It's the Vagrancy Act, I think, if I remember rightly. It's like we used to use
I want it to be that.
Well, taking and marking a badger was the one I always used to use as a test crime when we were setting up systems. Yeah, taking and marking a badger, contrary to the Countryside Act, I think, Countryside Act 1970 something. So.
I mean, that's.
I wonder why that was a problem
as well. Yeah.
Like what happened?
It's badger baiting and people who.
Okay. I was thinking, what
pull them out and skin them and all sorts of horrible things. So it's an offence to take. It was always the right offence.
Okay, I think this is a good place.
How heavy is a badger in bananas?
That's a good place to leave it for
20 island wrens.
Yeah.
Okay, we've had Barbie cheap drunk drivers. We've had politicians claiming not to notice motorhomes. We've had Donald Trump discovering that writing your name on things doesn't automatically make them yours. And we've had proof, yet again, that there is good news out there, even when everything might suggest that it's all doom and gloom. So thank you for listening to Everything's Fine, Probably. Thank you to Gemma, Shelley, Stuart, and of course our guest.
Can I just say?
No, you can't.
Gemma is absolutely screaming at the screen. What's that?
I am, because an adult-sized badger weighs the same as approximately 120 medium-sized bananas. I know you were all dying for that piece of information, so
I wonder how many bananas I weigh.
Well, now we know.
I'm going to be like at work. I'm going to be going to patients. Oh, do you want your weight in kilograms or bananas?
Jim is going to be furious now that I've interrupted his outro for that. But well played, Gemma.
That's good.
I feel like
this is what people listen to us for.
This is what payback looks like, fellas. Just saying.
So, if that's added to your enjoyment of the show, please please subscribe, follow, leave a review if you like. Share it with your friends, with your family. Remember, every share helps independent podcasts survive. We are essentially powered by listener recommendations, blind optimism, and whatever change we can find down the back of the pod sofa. We're going to leave you this week on a bit of a cliffhanger.
Oh.
Because regular listeners will know that for some time it's been the four of us. attempting to drag the news cycle towards something that doesn't immediately make you want to throw your phone in the canal. But next week, 4 becomes 3. One of the team will be leaving the podcast. Yes, next week will be their final appearance and everything's fine probably. Now, before the group chat explodes, we're not going to say who. Not yet. You're just going to have to tune in next week and find out. Will it be Gemma? Will it be Shelley? Will it be Stuart? Will it be me? Nobody knows. Well, apart from us, obviously. And anyone else they've already told. But if you ignore all the people who do know, nobody knows. The point is next week's show is going to be a big one. There'll be memories, laughs, tears, probably some inappropriate jokes at someone's expense. Stu will probably interrupt some people. There'll probably be a reform councillor resigning to mark the occasion. So make sure you're subscribed. Join us next week for the episode where 4 becomes 3. And until then, stay hopeful, stay kind, and remember that everything's fine. Probably.